I'm Bryce, I'm your teacher. I have peanut butter on my hands, and we're about to do lesson 1.9, writing formulas. The best way to describe a formula is going to be by showing you example of one first and then working from there. So here we have D equals RT. So we have an equation. Equation just means there's an equal sign involved. And we have variables involved. And the variables, as you can see, are D, R, and T. Now, these variables have meaning in the context of our problem, and this is what they mean. D equals distance, R equals rate, and T equals time. So if we were to read this sentence in English, it would say distance equals rate times time. Now, how is that helpful? Well, let's say we have a rate, for example, 3 miles per hour, and we have a time of 4 hours. So what do we do when we have values for our variables and we need to put them in? We call it substitution. So we have a value for R, we have a value for T, so let's rewrite everything. D, we don't have anything for D yet. We have something for R, 3 miles per hour. T equals 4 hours. And so then we multiply. In another video, I'll teach you how to do unit multiplication, but for right now, let's just look at the coefficients. So 3 times 4 gives us 12. So distance equals 12 miles. So let's back up. We want to know the distance. If we have a rate and a time, if we are driving at 3 miles per hour and we drive for 4 hours, well, the first hour we're going to go 3 miles. Next hour we're going to go 3 more, then 3 more, then 3 more. Altogether, we've gone 12 miles. So if we multiply, that'll give us the total distance traveled in that time. And if we look, that's exactly what we get. We get the 12. So distance equals 12 miles. If our rate is 3 miles per hour, we multiply by 4 hours, that gives us our total distance. So this phrase right up here, this equation, gave us something to plug our numbers into so that we could get the answer we wanted. This is called a formula. We have something we're interested in knowing. We have things we already know. We plug in the things we know so that we can get the thing we don't know. That might have been complicated, but good thing you can rewind if you need to hear it again. Let's take a look at another example. Let's say we want to know what William's age is based on Bryce's age. So we know that Bryce is 3 years older than William, or William is 3 years younger than Bryce. How would we write that in a math sentence? Think about it. Pause it if you need to. So let me say, William is 3 years younger than Bryce. William is means equals most of the time, 3 years younger than Bryce. So Bryce minus 3. Well, okay, that's pretty good. So how does this help us? Well, if we know that Bryce is 22, we can do a substitution. What's 22 minus 3? That gives us 19. That tells us that, William is 19. Well, what if Bryce later on becomes 26? Well, we can do the same thing. We can do a substitution for Bryce's age. 26 minus 3 gives us 23. This is another example of a formula. We have something we want to know, or we have something we don't know. We have something that we'll know later, and we set it up so that we can just make substitutions so that we can get to the thing we want to know. We can call this, see how William's age is all by itself? That we can call that the subject of our formula. It's the thing we want to know. So it should always be by itself on the equal sign, just like with our distance. It was all by itself on one side of the equal sign. Let's do one more example. Let's take a football example. Let's say we want to know the score a team has. But the score is, how do we calculate a score for a football team? Well, the score equals the number of touchdowns plus the number of points they get from touchdowns plus the number of points they get from field goals. So let's make S the score. Let's make T the number of touchdowns. And let's make F the number of field goals. Now, how do we write this sentence? So, score equals the number of touchdowns plus the number of field goals. Now, if we were to do it like this, if they scored 1 touchdown and 1 field goal, how many points should they have? They should have 10, right? But if we were to substitute it right here, we would have 1 plus 1. So what are we missing? Well, for every 1 touchdown they score, how many points do they get? They get 7. So, right up here, instead of just having a T, we can have 7T. So 7 points times the number of touchdowns plus 3 points times the number of field goals. So let's take a look at this. Let's say they score 2 touchdowns and 1 field goal. What should their score be? So score 7 times 2 touchdowns plus 3 times 1 field goal. That'll give us 7 times 2 is 14. 3 times 1 is 3. That gives us the score is 17. See? We're just converting our English into our math. Let's take another example. Let's say they scored 3 field goals and 1 touchdown. Score equals 7 times 1 plus 3 times 3. Score equals 7 plus 9. Score equals 16 points. So the main things of a formula, we want to be able to get the thing we want to know by itself on one side of the equal sign, and we want to write it as we say it, just like we say it in English. We want to get good at translating from one to another. But with these formulas, we have a tool that we can go back to later and use it multiple times, just like we did here. We had one example with 2 touchdowns, 1 field goal. We had one example with 1 touchdown, 3 field goals. And over here, we had one example where I was 22 and one where I was 26. And we didn't do 2 for the first one, but you could have done the same thing. So keep those things in mind, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!